Russia's attack on Ukraine has divided the world and forced most countries to take sides. But Turkey has kept relations steady with both the sides in the conflict, leading efforts to restore peace. President Erdogan has been in regular contact with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin since the attack began on February 24th. Both leaders have held meetings in Tehran, Sochi, Astana and Samarkand. Erdogan has also met Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Lviv. His efforts proved vital in paving the way for a historic grain deal in July. Turkey also mediated a prisoner exchange deal, which led to the release of 215 Ukrainians and 55 Russians. Putin even suggested that Turkey should act as an energy hub for Russian gas, which faces EU sanctions. At every step of the conflict, Erdogan has called on both sides to give peace another chance. Turkey hasn't yet succeeded in arranging a summit between the two sides, but will Erdogan be able to organize such a meeting next year? And for more on this, joining me now from Kiev is Peter Zalmayev. He is the director of the Eurasia Democracy Initiative, and Zaur Gasimov. He is a senior fellow at the University of Bonn. A warm welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me on Straight Talk. So, Zaur, almost 1 year on, where does the Ukraine conflict stand now?
It's very difficult to say, even though after 1 year we have a huge human disaster taking place in Ukraine, and we have a huge several waves of refugees mostly to Western Europe, to Poland, to other countries of Central Europe. But we have also refugees from Ukraine, definitely in South Europe, on the Balkans, and even in the Middle East. And there are no signs until now that the war in Ukraine will end soon.
So, Peter, what do you make of Turkey's position since the start of Russia's attack on Ukraine?
Well, Turkey has been quite careful when it comes to the conflict. I think it made the right decision early on by closing the Bosphorus Strait to warships, including Russian warships. That has made a significant difference. And Turkey's mediation in the grain crisis was also quite important. Obviously, Bayraktar drones, you cannot underestimate that weapon, which made a huge difference early on during those decisive days and weeks when Ukraine was literally teetering on the brink as far as the survival of the state when it came to the Battle of Kiev. So having said that, Turkey has continued to balance, to have a balancing position, and some of it, I believe, will in the long run be no longer tenable as Russia gets more and more involved in this war, as Vladimir Putin has shown time and again that he's not willing to negotiate anything other than Ukraine's surrender. Sergei Lavrov has just said, the foreign minister, that he essentially proposed an ultimatum to Ukraine, give up those territories we have already captured or else. Well, behind that else, like I said, Putin will not stop it even at those territories. He will continue being on the attack. So our hope here in Ukraine is that Turkey does not serve as a kind of offshore zone for Russians to hide their money, providing them with various alternative payment systems, etc., because that position will be increasingly untenable as Europe and as the U.S. continue their squeeze on Russia with sanctions.
So, Zaur, what do you think? I mean, would you agree with Peter, and will Turkey eventually be forced to pick sides as the conflict drags on?
I guess that what we definitely see here is a certain hybrid approach, and maybe we shouldn't think in the categories of taking side at that time, as Turkey provides a very important platform with regard to the grain deal mentioned by Peter, but the same goes also for the platform for eventual diplomacy and for eventual political negotiations. We know that in this year, all meetings between Russian and Ukrainian officials took place on Turkish soil, so it was in the first months after the Russian assault, and that gives hopes that Turkey could continue to work a role of a diplomatic domain or the side maintained contact to the both sides and just siding with the certain diplomatic and political solution for the conflict.
So, Peter, meanwhile, how has Russia's attack on Ukraine changed the Kiev-Ankara relations? Does Kiev still view its relationship with Ankara as part of its partnership with the West, or it has changed a bit?
Well, yes, indeed. Ukraine cannot afford neither side. Let's face it. Neither the Russian side nor the Ukrainian side can afford to see their relations with Ankara deteriorated. Ankara has managed very deftly this diplomacy, and like I mentioned, its help to Ukraine has been quite important. When it comes to Ukraine's aspirations to join NATO, as we have seen in the example of aspirant countries, Finland and Sweden, Turkey will have a decisive vote. We need Turkey on board with the eventual decision to accept Ukraine as a member of the European Union. Having said that, obviously, we're also talking about Turkey's long-term a membership bid for EU, which hasn't gone anywhere yet. It's been a major sort of obstacle to Turkey becoming a full-fledged member of the West. And I think in this respect, since Ukraine gained its membership plan to join the EU, Ukraine may in turn repay Turkey's kindness and be Turkey's advocate in the EU, so that Turkey eventually becomes a member of the Union.
So, Zaur, moving forward, how will Turkey's deepening defense ties with Ukraine play out in the future? Is it likely to unsettle Russia, for example?
I would see that in a complex of relations. We see very intensive interaction between Kiev and Ankara in the last years, maybe the most intensive one compared with the 90s. The same goes also for Russia. And I see in future the deepening of interaction in many fields, not only in political field or economic field, but not also in agricultural field, what we see now very intensively, but also in security and military terms. And we see here really not only an interaction or a sell and buy a relationship, but also plans about common production of drones, for instance. So this kind of cooperation is very unique. Ankara enjoys with Kiev. So I see many fields where the cooperation could be possible in future.
So, Peter, what do you make of the U.S.'s leading support to Ukraine to counter Russia's attacks? I mean, you have mentioned about Ukraine's European Union membership, but how it has impacted the relations between the European Union countries? I mean, are we seeing a collective approach here?
We are seeing a collective approach, and Russia wants to portray it as sort of this diktat by Atlanticist powers such as Britain and the U.S. and they're claiming that European continental powers are hostages of that policy. But having said that, I would say that not only does Ukraine owe its survival in large part to this newfound spirit of togetherness that the West has found in helping Ukraine survive as an independent state. But I think I would also posit that the West owes Ukraine a debt of gratitude for holding down the fort, for holding the defense against a revanchist and essentially fascist power, imperial fascist power of Vladimir Putin, who would not stop at Ukraine, and we're hearing rumors that Moldova may be the next target. So Ukraine is serving as a very, very important defensive function to the Western world, and it's fighting for its values. And so the West, having supported Ukraine this much, simply cannot afford to flush Ukraine down the drain, so to speak. So we are both in it together, and we should stay together for as long as it takes to put an end to Vladimir Putin's imperial revanchist desires.
So moving away from Europe, Zaur, how has this crisis changed the political dynamics in the Middle East? I mean, what do you make of the new alignments among the Gulf and Arab countries, which are kind of distancing themselves from the US?
There are two dimensions and two aspects which are of paramount importance, showing how dependent the process in Europe are from those in the Middle East and vice versa. So we have seen that Ukrainian grain exports are of crucial importance for the African continent and for the Middle East, and how important here is the interaction and certain cooperation despite of the war. In the same time, also we see Iranian drones versus Turkish drones on the Ukrainian front line used by two opponent forces. So one couldn't imagine such growth of the region's importance in 10 years ago, for example, or 15 years ago. So that shows that a certain development of military technology took place in the region of the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And in the same time, Turkey stayed somehow also close to the NATO's value system.
Okay, so Peter, how is Russia and Iran's growing isolation changing the political landscape?
Well, this is indeed a very unique situation. You know, one Eastern Orthodox country such as Russia is trying to liberate parts of another Eastern Orthodox country such as Ukraine using the drones of a Shia authoritarian regime, Ayatollah regime in Iran. So far, the only true Russian allies in this ridiculous and illegal war have been North Korea, Syria, Iran, and to some extent Venezuela. I mean, just that collection of countries should tell you everything you need to know about this sort of war and the kind of appetite other countries have to be involved in this. I think Russia's continued cooperation with Iran will eventually drag Israel into this situation. Israel is under pressure to help Ukraine more. And obviously Zelenskyy used that fact of Iranian drones and possible delivery of Iranian ballistic missiles to Russia. Yes. In his speech to Congress, which also has been helping Ukraine ratchet up, support we're getting. The fact that, America's and Israel's greatest enemy, Iran, is helping in this war.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.